Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday night, time for another live Wicked Horror Show. I'm Kevin, and as always, I'm joined by Tony Has Nine Fingers.
What is going on, people?
And Tony, would you like to introduce our very special guests?
Sure. From the new horror comedy Gothic Slayers. I don't know, again, where you're going.
You tell me.
Our director, Caleb Harris.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for coming on. And writer and actor, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other stuff, Ben Getz. Hopefully I said that right.
Hey, totally. And wicked intro, by the way.
Wicked.
Pun intended.
Wicked. It's because I say wicked a lot, and I'm from Massachusetts. Go figure. Go figure, dude.
He's like, yeah, let's just call it Wicked Horror Show. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. Movie was very fun. I just got done watching. I try to watch it as close to showtime as possible. Yeah, it was a really good time. It feels like something I would have watched a long time ago, you know, back in my my younger days, and it captures that for me. And I'm a lot older than you guys, I would have to say. So that says a lot.
Don't let this platinum hair fool you. I'm actually like 45, almost 50 years old. So this is all
45, really?
Genetics.
No.
Yeah, in carrots. That's
No.
my secret.
He's not.
I was going to say 45. You look amazing for 45.
That's what he wanted from that. He wanted you to say that. You look amazing for 45, Caleb, but he's 30.
Okay, all right. So no, you look like garbage for 30.
That's exactly
That's
what he's fighting. Mm-hmm.
No. It's so I am in my late 40s. I'm gonna be 50 this year, and it's so that's the thing is it feels like something that, you know, like I'm not saying it's like meatballs or anything like that, but it kind of has like reminiscent of like that feel kind of movie to me, you know, like something that I would have come across on cable that I would have been like, all right, this isn't my new favorite movie. Like I'm going to watch this until my VHS like breaks, and then I'm going to have to find it again, you know? So it definitely, you know, obviously there's some other aspects of it that are more updated, like the video game aspect of it, even though it pays homage to those older video games, but the graphics and stuff, and the, you know, just some of the visuals and stuff. But yeah, I really dug it. I dug it a bunch. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about how this came to be.
Yeah, I mean, this was a nostalgia trip for us, right? So there are so many nostalgic elements to this. We really missed films that were like Scott Pilgrim and Superbad and, Step Brothers, just kind of those fun comedies that you can just put on and not think too hard about after you leave the theater or your couch. So that was sort of where we started in writing this thing. And we filmed predominantly in Maryland, which is where I grew up. And what was kind of crazy was normally you write the script and then you have to find locations that kind of fit the script. But we were always writing to locations that I grew up with. So I grew up going to the mini golf course that's in the film, and I grew up going to the Arctic Circle and getting ice cream at night at the summer. And so that was kind of how it started. We were writing to these locations, and then I was home for a Thanksgiving and kind of went to these locations and started asking, would you mind if we filmed here? And I was kind of thinking I would get a lot of no's. And everyone said yes. And I was like, ah, shit, I've actually got to make this thing now. I've got like no excuse not to make this. So that's kind of how it started. I wrote it with my writing partner, Dylan, who's also acts in the film as Dylan. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I roped this guy into it, Caleb. Caleb and I worked on a project in Iowa together called Play by Play back when we were wee kids. And that's how I met him. And just stayed in contact, kind of watching his career grow. We didn't really, we weren't like friends, like we were acquaintances, and I kind of reached, I knew what he was capable of, and I kind of reached out to him on a whim and was like, hey, would you mind looking over the script? I think you'd be really great as a director on this thing. And he was like, sure. And the next day I had a whole like pitch deck from him with examples from films that he wanted to like emulate and ideas for how we were going to shoot certain things. I mean, the next day. And, you know, don't tell Caleb this, but I had gone to a couple other director friends of mine in the city with ideas, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll look at it. And it would like a month would go by and I wouldn't hear from them. So I was like, this is the guy for the job, 100%. This might be him just realizing for the first time that he was not the number one choice, but he's always in my heart, the number one choice.
Thank goodness I have no life. And I really do the job because I have no life and I don't sleep. So
So that's interesting that you had like so what other movies were you like whatever movies were you like pitching as far as like I'm taking from this movie here, and like what were inspirations?
I think my biggest, like overall for the film in general, like a director that like I really connected with, that I felt like had the right tone for the project, was Edgar Wright. And I love the way that he does his films, and especially the way that he presents like best friend characters in his stories. Hot Fuzz, At World's End, Shaun of the Dead, like all of these like buddy comedies that have this like extraordinary kind of element to it that's like really over the top, was what drew me to the project, because those are the stories that I like to tell. And so yeah, like my pitch deck was just filled with references from Edgar Wright, and then even like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, with this incorporation of this mixed media of the video game element kind of playing at the same time as the real world stuff. I really, really took a lot of inspiration from him. So yeah, I wanted to make kind of like what you guys were saying earlier, this like nostalgia, film that like emulated all of these things that I really loved when I watched, these movies growing up, that were like very iconic for the friendships that I had. Like we would come over to my house and we'd watch all these films together. And so it was cool to be able to just put as much of myself into the film while also paying homage to just a director and a storyteller that I think is just really unmatched kind of in the industry.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's, I don't know. I think I can feel that. I mean, I'm a fan of the Edgar Wright stuff as well. And, yeah, I mean, I think you pulled it off. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Because I guess everybody who watches this might pull different things. Because as the movie went, I pulled in my head, I'm like, there's so many different movies I'm thinking of. Like some of the quotes and stuff, I'm like, that kind of has like a Napoleon Dynamite feel to it. Then some of it was like your co-star Dylan. I'm like, he looks like the guy Fred from the old Nickelodeon movies. Then I'm like, I wonder if that, and then just like his mannerisms and stuff. And
it's
like,
too young for like, that's too young of a reference for me.
Well, yeah, it's too like young for me too. But I look at him like he kind of looks like that. But then just like just the dialogue and everything that was going through, especially like his love of his life or whatever, and just the way he's doing it. Like some of the one-liners too got me a lot. Like I did a review for it on my TikTok, and I'm like, this is one of my new favorite movies, just because it has like, it's not your typical horror movie. It's got a little bit dusted in there, because usually it's like, okay, it's horror and then a little comedy dusted in. This is more of a comedy with like okay, here's some horror aspects for it. But it's one of those things where, it just flowed so easily. Like there wasn't like a break off. It kind of built itself up. And then it's like, okay, now you add more characters and just the way they interacted. I liked it a whole bunch for sure.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the fun part. Like when Ben and Dylan approached me with the script and we were all kind of like working on it together and we were kind of in that pre-production process, was we wanted to leave as much as we could kind of open-ended for the audiences to do exactly that. Like put your own movies or references that like you connected with kind of into the film. And so, we were pretty intentional in the way that we tried not to make any direct references to necessarily the exact time period that we were in. We wanted it to feel like you could drop this in the late 80s or somewhere in the 90s or 2000s, and it could all kind of work, minus a couple, small little moments. So then, the audience is just able to do exactly that. Be like, oh, this reminds me of this reminds me of that. And so far, some of the feedback that we've been getting from the film is that, families will watch it, like kids who are like 10 years or younger, and then they have their parents that they're watching it with. And the kids will have a really great time because they see things in it that they really like. And the parents are like, oh, yeah, I totally connect with something here from like my own past. So I think it was hard, especially for me, because I really love writing, very specifically referenced like quippy dialogue and putting that in my films with like, over the top references. But Ben and Dylan were able to pull me back from that. And I think it worked out for the best in the film. Just like everyone just gets to take kind of what they see in their own life from the project.
Like there was even like little things like, and I was just making like, there was nothing other than the fact that it was not even just golf, but it was mini golf, not putt-putt, mini golf. But
Thank
it
you.
was, yeah, you're welcome. But I was just like, he kind of resembles Chevy Chase from time to time. So like I was just like, all right, there's like I was thinking Caddyshack in my head, and then I was thinking like little things, but other than that, there wasn't much else that I'm gonna be like, this is like a rip off of Caddyshack. It's not by any means, and but it made me think of Caddyshack, and then it made me think of this because of something else, and then it made me think of this. But it's all movies that I respect and enjoy. So I'm like, that's good. It makes me think of these movies, but it's not making me think of these movies like it wishes it was that movie. It wasn't that at all. So that's I guess that's a compliment. I just don't know how else to say it, I guess.
No,
but
I mean,
it's a
that's been the
compliment.
fun part for us is like hearing what movies people think are similar. Like the other day, someone was like, oh, I was getting Ferris Bueller's Day Off vibes from it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like that was not one
Yeah.
of our really references. Actually, they had picked out, this is like a huge movie buff, and they'd picked out the same painting that's in the cornfield is like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And they were like, I got what you were doing with the homage there. And I was like, that was just a painting that was at the Goodwill that we grabbed.
That
It
was
was,
just coincidence.
it was so funny.
Yeah.
I was like, but I'm glad you got it.
I
But
was
yeah,
even like I was paying attention to like background stuff like that house, like the house where the I don't want to give away too much, but the house where the baddies were living. I was just like, that's such an interesting house. And then I noticed a plaque on the wall. I'm like, oh, that's a house, has to be like a historic building of some sort. So what is that place?
that place is crazy. We found this place. So 3 weeks were filmed in Maryland. A fourth week we went out to LA. This house was in LA. Now this house does not look like an LA house, right? Like this house, this is part of a historic site in LA where they've actually grabbed houses from different parts of the US and brought them to LA, like, on a truck, on these like stilts and on this truck over to LA and put this all in one complex. So there's like 3 or 4 of these old houses that were going to be demolished, but they were saved by this organization out there. So it's a crazy house. It was on, we've been catching it in a bunch of things that we've saw after the fact, which is crazy. So it's in, I Think You Should Leave, that series on Netflix. When he is
absolutely adore that show.
Yes. So when he's doing the ghost tour and he's being like inappropriate questions, it's that house.
Oh, that's sick. That is sick.
I forgot we caught it in something else too, Caleb.
Nick Kroll's show too. He had an episode where he was like the paranormal investigator.
Where he's like fake Zach Baggins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
sick.
it was cool because like, yeah, we were like, oh my gosh, we were on like solid ground with like all these like really top notch, comedians who like we all respect. And so it was cool, even like, accidentally us picking that location and deciding to shoot there, and then finding that these other, productions had been there, kind of like just made all of that extra special for us. That like, okay, like, yeah, we're with the big boys, we're shooting at the same places that they are.
No, that's sick. Now I have to go back and watch. Any excuse to go back and rewatch, I think you should leave is enough for me. But real quick, Sergio's in the chat. He wants to say what's up, and he's already asking if we have a trailer. We do have a trailer. I'm going to try to play it. We'll see how it works.
Crossed.
Fingers crossed. And Zach's in the chat saying, ahoy there, mateys. Ahoy there, mateys. Yes. So yeah, we usually try to play the trailer around the halfway mark, so that way we know, okay, halfway through, I've screwed it up.
I thought that was the bathroom break time. That's where you usually play it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's
his fans.
Yeah. Actually, that's pretty funny because a lot of times Sergio was like, "Hey, do we have a trailer?" And then I'll play it, and then he's like, "Did I miss the trailer?" Like right after I play it.
Sergio, put in those depends tonight, and stick around for the trailer.
Oh, and Angel, who's usually the third mic, he didn't get a chance to watch the movie, so he didn't come on because he didn't want to. He didn't want to waste the time, so waste your time. So he's watching right now. Angel, I think you would love the movie personally. So I think if you have a chance to watch it, you should. So what is the so right now it's available on Amazon to rent, correct?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, Apple TV, Google Play, Fandango at home. Basically anywhere you can kind of stream something to rent or buy, it's there.
I was just looking on IMDb, and the only thing I had listed was Amazon. So it's good to know that it's everywhere.
We're gonna call IMDb and complain tomorrow. Thank you.
Yep. Call Frank IMDb on the phone and be like, "Yo, Frank,
dang it,
ball."
100%.
Now, do you know? Is there any plans as far as like any other kind of like physical release? Yeah, Tony.
Like a physical
point behind him because he's a collector. So do you know if there's any kind? Yes, there you go.
Yes, we are. We're working on that right now. We've got some cool special features. We've got bloopers. We shot a music video for one of the songs that's in the film of this amazing artist, Pseudo, that gave us 2 of his songs for the film. And we also have audio commentary that we recorded in that same living room that Caleb is sitting in right now. So yeah, we're working on that physical copy right now.
That's what I love to hear is those, people are like, why, physical? And then it's because of the special features and the time you have the movie, and then sometimes the special features take just as long to put together and whatever. It's like a movie within a movie, and it's like, just seeing what goes on behind the scenes and the blooper reels. It's like, it's awesome as a collector. So
that's great. We have as much as like as many special features as Lord of the Rings have. We have twice as much. So it's like a 5-disc set that you're gonna have to buy, but it's crazy. It's only $200, so don't worry about it.
Per disc.
Per disc, correct. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, we're gonna bring you on for our finance department for sure.
Well, that's Tony's jam, so he's all about it. So pre-orders now, Tony.
See, the other thing I was thinking about as we were talking too, I was thinking at the end when you find out and the evil presence manifests and just saying his name and the things, it had like a Mel Brooks or something feel to me, where it's just like every single time it's like, it's ominous, and then that I laughed. It was like the first, the second time, and then the third time happened. I'm like, okay, I get it now, and then it just kept going. I'm like, I like it.
You'll notice too that Dylan's swoop actually switches sides throughout the whole film too. So you can go back and rewatch that.
I did kind of notice that.
That's when you don't have enough money for a continuity person. That's what happens.
Oh, see, or you could just be like, that was on purpose.
100% on purpose. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
And Kevin's the one, him and another.
I know, and I'm a continuity guy. I'm a guy who like gets irritated by that stuff. But when it comes to comedies, I guess I probably assume that it's on purpose.
We were big continuity guys on our own film, actually. So I think most of that was on purpose, if there is an issue. The swoosh, though, I don't think was on purpose.
So it's you and Dylan, which were, the comedy relief, but the other people in it, where did you find everybody else? Because, even the smallest part, like the little ruin guy at the end, I think that little like minute long thing, I was like laughing the whole time, and it's just like, where'd you get everybody? Because
Yeah,
I think the whole cast worked perfectly.
Thank you. That's my favorite scene. That's actually my cousin. Is the rune painter. He's an actor though in his own right. He's doing a show in DC right now. But he's a DC actor, and he has done Second City stuff. He's a really great comedic actor. But some of those people we went to school with. So Dylan and I met at NYU. Dan, who plays Cody, was also an NYU friend of ours. Sam Rothermel, Piper Verbrick, they went to NYU. We didn't know them as well at NYU, but they went there. But we did put out like casting calls. So a lot of those people, Sully, who plays Dougie, most of the other people were just from casting call. We cast out of LA, New York, Atlanta. But what was fun was some of those smaller roles we cast out of my hometown. So the guy, the prisoner, the cop, the janitor is my dad, so for the no line role. But yeah, so
you like open the door and you're like whoa, like
exactly, yeah, that's my dad.
Yeah,
it's just so scary, right? But yeah, so the prisoner and the cop were great. I mean, and these were just the cop I went to high school with is Lamar Leonard, just amazing guy. And what was funny was we had originally cast him as the clerk in the 610. Yeah. And last minute we had to switch his role, and he like hadn't gotten a chance to look at any of the lines and stuff, and he killed it. The creepy prisoner is a local guy that has been in some films but not acted too much, and he was great. And we actually, I don't know if you can't really tell because we covered it up, but he's had on the day we realized he had a huge tattoo of Animal from the Muppets. And we were like, oh my God, we're going to get sued if we have this. So we had to just put a bunch of like black paint on there. So if you see that, that's what's going on. But yeah, I mean, the cast killed it. Oh, and shout out to Quinn, one of our actresses. She was in the newest Bad Boys, which was like she killed her role. But yeah, Caleb, you have.
What about the little boy?
Yeah,
that was just like.
That right from the beginning, I knew it was gonna like you two did your thing, and like right like in the beginning when you're like spilling everything together and whatever and throwing it, and then it just stops at him, and he's got the little corn helmet and whatever, and it's like, listen, I'm like, I'm gonna like this movie right from the beginning. So
that kid, he had never acted before. He had all of his lines memorized all the time. It was unbelievable. That we just really lucked out, because when you have kids on set, it can be really hard. They don't know their lines. They don't feel comfortable in front of the camera. This kid had never been in front of a camera, and he was killing it. It was amazing. The one thing though is we wanted him to curse. We had written in lines where he cursed or he like flipped us off. And he refused to do it, and his mom was like, "It's okay, you can do it," and he was like, "No." Like, all right.
Yeah,
he was a good kid. What a good kid. I mean, I would have been the same way, because I'd be like, "It's a trick. My mom's saying I can do it, but as soon as I do it, I'm in trouble."
Exactly.
We had a lot of kiddos in the film too, and like as a director, it was my first time really working with so many child actors like kind of in one piece. I started as an actor, so I had a little bit of background in like knowing how to work with like adults, but like I had to kind of take a different approach when I was working with the kids. Like they were all really good, but you got to find a way to kind of like keep them focused in between setting up shots and making sure that they're giving you the inflection that you want like on certain things. So I found the best way to kind of like keep them engaged was like playing games with them in between takes. So I would do like Simon Says with them. So while the grips and stuff are setting up the lights and moving cameras, we would go over and play Simon Says, where I'd get them to practice their lines. I would get them to do like silly faces or make funny noises just to kind of keep them kind of in the zone. And it was a big challenge, but I think all the kids did a really great job in the film.
That's awesome.
Especially at the end with the little heroes. I don't want to say anything, but the heroines, should I say, at the end? So yeah, how many times did they say don't work with animals or children?
Yeah,
but I guess it's eventually you're gonna have to do it.
The Ladybugs, I think, were a little bit older though, weren't they? A little bit older than him, anyways.
Slightly, I would say.
Yeah.
There were some youngins there too.
Yeah. It was funny because Melanie, who plays Maggie, is older. She was over 18, and we kind of cast her for like her look and stuff, and also so we could, keep her on set and not have to worry about like the child restrictions that you have.
Mm-hmm.
But she looked so young that these kids were like out there doing this final scene with her, and they were going up to her, and they were even fooled, and they were like, "So, what's your favorite subject? Like, are you do your math homework after this?" So it was really cute, but.
She was all being like jaded and being 18.
Yeah,
she
was smoking
was
cigarettes.
minding my own business.
Yeah.
She's like, listen, kid, you get to be my age.
That's exactly what she did.
That was the one thing when I did the review. I'm like, I honestly have no idea how old everybody is in this movie. I'm like, I think they're between this age and this age, but I'm not 100% sure because they talk about being older, but then they act like they're like teenagers. So I'm like, I can't give you a rough estimate of how old everybody is in this movie, but we'll just go with it.
You never really know. Like just like all the movies you watch, you watch a movie back in the 80s, and you're like, oh, they must be like in their 20s, and you're like, oh, they were 48 or whatever.
It's given us like a warped view of like how old you should look when you're in high school or something, like because they have all these 20-year-olds playing high school, so you're always thinking like, I'm gonna look like that when I'm in high school. You're like, I look like a child. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's weird. So we're about the halfway point. So I want to try to play the trailer. So Angel, if you're still watching, I think I figured it out.
Angel, get back from the bathroom.
Yeah, Sergio, flush, run back. All right, let me try. I'm going to share that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. No, I want to do this. All right. Now I'm going to play here.
Are you guys okay? You kind of look like shit.
You ever wish your life had ended up differently?
Looks like you missed a few.
Oh! You suck. Big time. Be the ball. I'm getting closer. You couldn't part a whole of our lives depended on it.
What are you playing?
Gothic Slayers.
It's this game where you go around killing these gothic freaks.
Beware of the goth chicks.
You see that? Maybe we think we saw something we didn't really see. Right. Let's say what we think we saw. 1, 2, 3. A group of hooded figures recited a spell that made an old man float in the air, and then a little ball of light came out of his chest and was sucked into a necklace around a guy's neck, and then the old man vanished. Brain freeze. Out loud, it sounds cool, but it was real and very scary.
Wait, you guys witnessed a murder?
Yes! The Goth family from yesterday. They drove their van up, grabbed Dougie, and threw him in the back. Who are these people? I don't know, it's like a cult? A cult? You think so? Look it up. All I'm getting is horses. You typed cults. Oops. Save that.
Suit up. Press start. And kick evil's butt.
We have one night to save your friend and shut this cult down for good.
We made it.
Oh,
dude, let's go.
Oh, check it out. Grass Angel.
It's time for you to die.
That worked. right?
Yeah. Well, I saw the trailer. Now, if everybody else saw it,
Hey, hey,
and I,
hey. Let's stop being so negative.
hey, listen, it's a step up from what it's been. So,
Yeah, yeah. All right.
and I
So
must say, I didn't see the trailer because I try to watch at least like nothing again because that actually was awesome.
yeah, I
Because
didn't
it
watch
had
the trailer either.
because it had two of the scenes that I cracked up at when they threw him in the back and he did like a backflip. I'm like, I had to watch that like 3 times and I was cracking up. And then that whole cult thing where it's like I'm just getting horses. I
Yeah.
like that whole thing. I was
Well,
cracking
my
up.
favorite part of that was just like and save or whatever, like when he saved
Yeah.
But yeah, that trailer was that because I try to not watch trailers because they have the tendency to be like, okay, here's all the awesome scenes, and then you watch the movie and you're like, it wasn't even in the movie. It's like, or it just like gives you so much that it's like I don't even have to watch a movie now. But that was like perfect, and it had like everything that like I loved about the movie in it. So
I appreciate that. I mean, there's a whole art in making trailers because it took us forever. And we were and it is that walking that line of like wanting to give people a taste of things, but not giving everything away. And also obviously not using, well, we didn't have the liberty to shoot things that we couldn't use in the film. We were on a time crunch, but not doing that either.
I'm glad you didn't because I don't know. I think it represents. I mean, this is the first time I'm watching the trailer as well, but it was. I think it represented the movie well.
yes,
So it's but yeah, and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because it's always good to hear from the 13th Wolfman, but the 13th Wolfman is not a fan of horror comedy.
and
In general.
we went back and forth because he says it's not horror's horror, and if it's comedy, it's a comedy. Which at this point in time, like I said, with this one, it's definitely a comedy with horror aspects like sprinkled in. So
Yeah. And he says, it looks okay, but it would be much better if it was more serious. I love movies about cults. But that's not what the movie is. The movie is what it is.
I think that's so fair. And that's like, some of the feedback that we're getting from horror fans that really want real, like, guts and blood and things. And it's tough because when you go to rate a film, usually you're not rating to a genre, right? Like you're just rating the film that you want to make. And then when a distributor gets in and they have to sell this thing as a certain thing, it's like what box can we put this in, right? That we always want to put things in boxes, and it was like, oh, this is a horror comedy, right? And we were a little bit like, oh no, like you don't want to sell it as something it's not, right? Because that was sort of our fear a little bit, is like the really big horror fans are gonna maybe be a little upset if they're not also okay with comedy, that this is going to be a little upsetting. But we've kind of just come to accept that this is the film that it is, and people are going to like it if they like it, and if not, but that is what's tough, is when it's marketed as a horror comedy. I mean, a horror comedy,
Right.
It's got touches of it, but it's not.
If it has horror first, it almost is like a disservice.
100%, but no one says a comedy horror, right? It doesn't roll off the tongue as well or something.
That's true.
I don't know.
That's true. But I don't know. I'm a person that, and Wolfie knows this. I personally think there's a place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it doesn't necessarily mean I love every movie, but I mean there's for subgenres and everything. There's an audience for everything. So I don't know, and I enjoyed.
But then sometimes too, being a part of the horror community, sometimes people are too gatekeepy, where it's like it has to be this, there has to be this much gore. If I don't see blood and guts, I don't want to see it, kind of deal. Yeah. And it's not horror. It's like, come on now. That's why there's subgenres of horror, which I love. That's why I think I love horror so much, because you can make so many different things: the sci-fi horror, comedy horror, thrillers where it's not blood and guts, but it's like mental or whatever. Then you do have your, gore-filled stuff or like cultish stuff. So, I mean, I just love movies for movies, and at that point in time, it's this one definitely. I remember there was a couple people on TikTok that were talking about it. I'm like, I definitely got to check this out. Then I reached out to you guys, and we got to see it, and I'm just like, I understand what they're talking about, because like as the movie went, I just laughed and laughed more. and then it was like, okay, here comes the cultish aspect, and so.
I think one of the beautiful parts of the process too was like we had so much freedom in like the way that we wanted to tell this story, because a development of a film and shooting it and everything is like such a long process, and as you're filming and as you're writing and stuff, you do ask yourself those questions like, oh, do we add more of this? Do we take away more of that? Do we lean it more in this direction? Do we take it away for that direction? And we were getting some feedback and some advice that was like, oh, this will help it sell more, or like, oh, this will make it more appealing to this specific market. And I think, for a little while, it was a little overwhelming on like all these different choices that we had. And I think what we ended up landing on was that like, we're going to tell like the story that like just best represents like who we are and like what we like. And we know, kind of like what you guys said, that it's not going to be for everybody. Everybody's not going to like exactly, this us on a plate. But what was exciting about it was that we got to just be like, hey, this is us, this is what we like to do and the stories we want to tell. And it's been really cool because it's attracted a lot of people kind of to us who also match our sense of humor and, the things that we like, those references from those old movies and stuff. So there's already kind of a little community that's being built, and that's just like super rewarding for us just to know that we went in with that intention of just like wanting to find more people who liked the stuff that we liked, and we're finding them, and it's really cool.
It's a good thing too, because that's on one side of the coin, but on the opposite side it's like you made your movie, but then the studios got into it and it turns out to be something completely different from what it started as. Right. And it's like, okay, maybe it was a little bit more popular, but it wasn't our vision. So then the people you were trying to attract aren't there. And then it's the people that, are just looking for that specific thing. And you're like, well, maybe you would have liked our actual vision, because we've seen that too, where it's like, okay, they left it in the hands of the producers or whatever, and everybody put their 2 cents, and what it started as turned into something completely different. So hearing that, maybe it wasn't for everyone, but it was our vision. I like hearing that. So.
Yeah. When you try to make like too many people happy, what like tends to happen is like no one's happy, because it's just kind of bland, or it kind of hits all the groups just a little bit and no one group a lot, But yeah, I appreciate, Tony and Kevin, you accepting it as a horror film. So that's all that I care about. I went into this process 2 years ago and I said, as long as Tony and Kevin accept it as a horror
film. Like, I don't know who these guys are, but in the back of my mind, this guy who's going to be, by the time I talk to him, almost 50, as long as he gets it, then I'm sold.
That was my thought exactly, Kevin.
Yep.
I'm glad you did that, Kevin, because then the movie got made. So
well, me too. Me too.
Yeah. But stop getting into people's minds, Kevin.
Well,
it's not allowed. Okay.
I got nothing else going on. Yeah.
And that's why under his name it says the worst.
I am the worst. Yeah, I am the worst. It's true.
It's different. It's different on every episode, but this time it's for getting.
Fitting.
But I'm saying, last week it was for a different reason. This time.
It's always the worst. It's just
always. I'm just saying for a
different reason. Yeah. Exactly. Last week was because I don't apologize for anything. And then there was one time I didn't put the cap back on the milk.
And
then because I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't even know why I had the cap off the milk. But that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other,
So with now, is it mostly you're writing, Ben, or is it Dylan, or is it a little bit of both?
It's 100% both. Actually, since he's not here, it was all me. No, it's great. We came up with the idea together. How we kind of work is we bullet point everything out, like the whole movie out, and then we kind of flesh it out from there. And he handles, like, I would say, a lot of the dialogue. I would say most of the dialogue, and I kind of look over a shoulder or am on another laptop, and I'm like, wait a minute. What if they say this instead, and this comes here? But it's great. We found a really good flow that works for us. I would say it's pretty 50-50. Yeah. And actually, Caleb had some stuff in, too. A lot of the heart of the film, honestly, came when Caleb entered the project, because we were just writing like comedy, and Caleb's like, well, let's like these guys a little bit. So kind of like the conflict that Dylan and I have against each other wasn't fully fleshed out until Caleb came in, and I think that makes it stronger, I hope, unless you guys think it's the worst. And if it's the worst, it's Caleb, or it's Kevin the worst.
It's me. Yeah, it could be my fault. No, I think that definitely added to it.
That one scene I thought was very interesting with like the flashback, because it's like okay, well, most of the time it's like, okay, cut to a different scene, but this time it's like, oh, it's right there in front of me. I was like, oh, that's a little cool thing. And then the going, back and forth to the video game aspect of it.
Yeah, that was.
I'm awesome. Like that's really cool too, because it's like, okay, certain scenes where maybe you can't tape everything. Let's just make the action here. Who was that part of the whole thing? Like, who developed the video game aspect part?
So that was a product of just like extreme production issues.
Caleb, don't say that.
Oh yeah, I always forget. I'm supposed to say it was my artist choice.
It was totally planned. Yeah.
No, we it wasn't originally written in the script, and it wasn't a part of like in my original vision for the film. But like, even just like the first day that we got into Maryland, it rained for like 3.5 days. And those were the days that we were supposed to shoot the cornfield scene, which then became like the 8-bit animated scene before they go and see the guy. And so, we go out there, we run into all these issues, and then we were just kind of put in this position where it's like, all right, we need to creatively find a way to like get around this, either through rewriting the script or coming up with another like visual medium to tell this. And I had always kind of known that like, the video game was like such a huge, part in guiding these two kind of yahoos down like this quest. So, I think we were just kind of spitballing one night at, 1:00 in the morning, in between getting ready for our 6th day on set. And like, it just kind of like came to us that, we should incorporate, the video game, but just in real life with like the avatars of the characters. And I'm such a huge video game nerd. Like, this was just such a great, excuse for me to put even more of myself into the film by like going back to my Super Nintendo days and like being able to find all these references of some of my favorite movies. And it's one of my favorite things to tell people about the filmmaking process is sometimes when it looks like you're just presented with this, unachievable, like unsurpassable, like obstacle, that sometimes like something really beautiful like can kind of come from it if you're open to like being creative and figuring out a way to make it work. And I can't imagine what the film would be without that part of it. It's my favorite part of the movie are all those 16-bit animation sequences. So, so just like if there are any directors or filmmakers out there listening, just, everything that goes wrong, take as a chance to make something new and something better and something different. And I think that's really what we tried to do with the movies. We wanted to make it feel like something we've seen before back in those like old times, but like different at the same time, taking risks.
I thought your favorite parts were my live action scenes. So that's
those were close second. You're the singles, the singles would be for sure.
I'm gonna have to take a Sergio bathroom break, I think.
Yeah. Well, he did say that he did not see the whole thing. He just saw a little bit of the trailer, so he didn't even see the whole trailer.
Yeah. We'll send it to you,
Sergio, or you can Google, not Google it. Go on YouTube and just do a search for it.
It's easier,
right there.
For sure.
And that's the one thing too. Like maybe by mistake or because of circumstance, you added the stuff, but that could have brought in a whole new audience because now you have the gamers that watch a video, the trailer, and they're like, oh, it's got a video game in it. They might not have thought to watch it before, but then it brought them in. But the thing is too, we've said it many times, we have a lot of independent directors on here, and people think that, making a movie is so easy, but then you don't realize that, you have a specific amount of time. And like you said, the first 3 days it rained. So that short time became even shorter. And then it's like, what do we got to do to get it done? People, that's the one thing doing this podcast, I've said many times, where it's just like, doing it and hearing the horror stories, it's just like I look at movies completely different than I ever did before because, I used to watch and be like, oh man, this movie could have been that much better. But then you hear, okay, we, this happened or the studios got into it or whatever. And I look at it completely different now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the first day, Caleb and I both, which we found out only later because we didn't tell each other, but we both were separately crying in our own rooms, and we thought that this movie wasn't going to get made because we had brought this crew in from LA to Maryland at the end of October. It was cold, and that first day was the cornfield day at where we don't really have, like, our holding was an old barn with no heat, and it's just torrential downpour. The trucks are getting stuck in the field. We had to get like a tow truck to come. Nothing was working. The crew was really unhappy. They were far from home. They were cold. They were freezing. And I think we both thought, well, this is it. Let's shutter this thing. But it's, it was kind of amazing. What was amazing also was our first day in LA. We get out there and we're told by the LA crew, oh, things are going to be so different. It's going to be nice and warm in LA and it's always sunny. First day, torrential downpour.
Yeah.
We were like, just our luck on this film. So,
but from every, just like what you're saying, all those horror stories and when all of these terrible kind of things happen, I've always found that if you stick with it and you find a way to find the strength to power through, that something beautiful kind of ends up coming from it. And, the most exciting part for me in my career and moving forward is that I'm afraid of a lot less, right? It was a challenging project and, we had a lot of obstacles that kind of got in our way, but now it's oh, we can do it. If we got through that, oh yeah, I'm not intimidated by anything that comes next. So it's hard to think about it in the moment, but I've started trying to every time things go wrong now, I'm okay, just embrace this moment, embrace that it's bad right now, but it's going to get better and you're going to grow from it and be stronger for it. So yeah, and that's my favorite part of, being a director. And, it's I like to solve problems. I like to make things work. And at the end of the day, that's your job. It's hey, we lost this prop or this, this actor can't be here or this thing's changed. What are we going to do? And you just have to make a split-second decision. Trust your gut and just make the best choice you can in the moment and then be proud of that.
What was a fun thing that came out of that rain was that, so the first part of the driving scene in the golf cart, when the boys are driving up to the cult house and it's really sunny, and then you pull up to the cult house. So the first half of that was shot in Maryland and the second half was shot in LA. So that LA day was the rain day. And we were like, how are we going to freaking cover this? And we were like, we don't have time to push this scene. And we were like, you know what, let's just do it that every time we're near the cult house, it's really dark and rainy, that it's just out of all of this town, it's always raining, which was really fun. And it was just not written into the script and just lucked out that's kind of how that worked.
Which would always make sense too. You would think here's the evil spot. Okay, now it's like I said before, with the name and then thunder. So it's okay.
It was perfect. Yeah, instead of us having to buy a rain machine, it just was doing it for us.
Yeah, there you go. And just out of curiosity, how difficult was it for to get these 16-bit animation stuff done? Was it expensive?
We found a guy that was not too expensive. He was very reasonable for what he gave us. We were kind of blown away, and that was kind of crazy. We found this guy on Instagram, and we had sent him a scene kind of as a test to see if he could do it, and he came back and it was great. Ruan Quintinos, you can find him in the credits. Unbelievable guy. But what was so amazing about those scenes was we kind of had a three-headed monster going at him. So we had him animating him. We had Caleb giving the direction and all of these great, oh no, we lost him.
He's coming back.
He was bored for my story. Oh, here he is. Tony, I swear it'll be a quick story, but
my internet.
We had Caleb kind of giving the creative direction and all of these nostalgic callbacks to other video games. And then our sound guy, composer, we had a composer that was only doing those scenes. That he kind of specializes in creating 8-bit music and doing sound effects. His day job is doing sound effects for animations, but he kind of moonlights on creating music for 8-bit games and things. So it was just amazing. Yeah, those are some of the best scenes of the whole freaking thing.
It got to be so authentic because of that.
Totally.
The person who was doing the animation, his whole Instagram page was just littered with obviously he does pixel animation, so he's a huge video game nerd himself. So he was able to be super authentic with the presentation of it. And then the person doing the music as well, like that's just what he likes to do. So then the music got to sound, exactly like what it would sound if you were, playing an old arcade cabinet, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, it worked out. It's crazy that we just found these people and that they were just such a perfect fit for it.
There were times where we were like, why didn't we just do a whole animated film? Like this would have been a lot of fun with no stress. You don't have to worry about rain. It would have been great.
But, I don't know. It wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, you don't get to see my face in it.
Exactly. You just popped up in the corner every once in a while, just like, hey, everybody. And then that was it. But
did you have screenings of the movies anywhere? Like any pop-up shows or anything? Or
yeah, so we did a first screening outside of Chicago at a drive-in movie theater, which was really fun because it was on a huge 9-story screen. It was really insane. One of the last screens kind of like that in the U.S., not as a drive-in, but it's the type of screen that it is where it's kind of off of on a building or a tower that was specifically made for it. It was awesome. And then we did our premiere a couple weeks ago at the Chinese theater, which Caleb put together, which was sick. And what was kind of crazy was that at the same time they were premiering in another theater in the Chinese theater, probably a smaller theater than we were in. They were premiering Captain America. So the whole freaking block was shut down on our premiere day, which was crazy. And they have, Harrison Ford and stuff walking the red carpet. Though I will say, we're not going to get this person fired, but someone who is working on Captain America, who we also know, came into our screening and watched our screening, did not go to the Captain America screening, and then went to their after party because I think their after party was a little more expensive than ours. But and then we're actually doing a screening in Maryland, in the hometown that I grew up in, where we shot April 5th, Saturday, April 5th. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Now, did people laugh at the spots you expected it to laugh, or did they laugh at different, you're like, okay, I can't wait to hear this part, and it was different, or did it hit where it was supposed to?
It's always funny, when you're in the theater, watching it with other people for the first time, that you find that some of the jokes that are funny, people are definitely responding to, but then you start to clock, you're like, oh, that's funny that they thought that was really funny. This got a big laugh because I didn't really intend for it to get a big laugh. I think one of the most rewarding parts of the film was we got a huge laugh in the theater when the cult father has somebody on his shoulder and is running away from the bull.
The feet.
Yeah, because we couldn't actually get the actual actor running full speed, so we got this dummy, and it has these floppy little legs that are just kind of waving in the wind. And, on the day we're like, oh my God, this looks so cheesy. It looks so bad. But people love that part of the film. We kept it
I assumed it was on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And it works. It matches the tone of the film. And
it totally does.
People are having a lot of fun with it.
We had feedback early on from one of the test screenings, just from one person that was like, you can't have those feet. It looks so fake, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, this is the funniest moment of the film because it looks so fake. It's so good. We were like, honestly, we want to extend that longer. So.
I wonder if we can 16-bit animate just the feet.
Exactly. We're like, no, it's so good. So
yeah. So it is just about time to wrap things up. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to plug whatever you need to plug. So where can people go to find out what else is going on, or do you guys have any other projects coming out, or anything else you guys want to promote? Start with Ben.
Yeah, so go watch Gothic Slayers. That's the most important thing. It's streaming, as we said, on Amazon, Google Play, Apple TV, and if you love it, please give us a good rating on IMDb or write something up on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you don't like it, definitely don't do those things. Don't do it for sure. No, we want to hear anyway. So yeah, write up reviews. It's just good to know. We do have other ideas, but they're not in production yet. So also, if you have money, let us know. Yeah, that's it for me. Caleb, you want to take it?
Yeah, we have one project that hopefully will be going into development here in the next year. It's actually a feature-length documentary about Clyde Butcher, who is a family friend of ours. So he's a large format photographer, shoots in the Everglades of Florida. He's an environmentalist, has a really, really touching story. So we're kind of in the early phases of development on that. So looking forward to hopefully having a documentary under our belt next. And then, we're developing those like narrative feature length ideas, potentially a sequel. Who knows? Maybe.
I will say we do have more horror film that is definitely a horror comedy and not a comedy horror. So if Sergio gives us a second chance, or whoever it was,
13th Wolfman.
Wolfman.
Yep,
we'll have that movie for him.
Yep. Yeah. So if there's a sequel coming, are you gonna step it up from Super Nintendo and go to like N64, or are you gonna like?
Right. Straight shoot it to like Xbox.
100%. It's going to be PS7, and then we'll.
No, I didn't know if that was like the next, because I'm an SNES guy myself. Like I have the emulators, like the handheld emulators and everything, and I can play like everything up to a certain point, but I always go to Super Nintendo. Always.
Our Venmos are open, Kevin. So if that's what you want, you know where to find it.
All right, cool. Sounds cool. I'm just saying, I'm a SNES guy, but yeah. So, and that'd be very interesting. I'd be interested in that documentary as well. I'm a huge fan of documentaries.
What was that one that you said you didn't expect to like, but you really like?
There's a bunch about stuff that I never thought I would ever care about ever in my life, and I'm like, this is a subject I never even knew existed, and like, why do I care about it so much now? Like, there was one I saw years ago about like quilting squares, like painted on the side of barns, and it was done so well. Like the documentary was done so well. I'm like, why do I care about this now? Like, I care about it. Like, it's like a thing. Like people like travel across the country just to locate where these things are painted, like on the side of barns and stuff like that. I'm just like. It was just done so well. I'm like, crap. Now I want to find these things.
I had my bachelor party at that Renaissance Fair in Texas from the documentary Renaissance Fair, or Ren Fair. I think that's what it's called.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we saw that and we're like, oh, that looks awesome. So Ben, Dylan, and other friends from the wedding party, we went down there and did a Renaissance Fair. So yeah, no, documentaries it's a totally different beast. It's got its own challenges, and like what you're saying, like trying to get people to like really connect and care on a deeper level is really tricky, but we're looking forward to
a home movie. It's not just a home movie. It's actually telling a story, and it's real. It's not just making up a story. It's real stuff. So
you feel like you owe it to these people to tell it right, because it's their story, right?
Yep, totally. So Tony, where can people follow you? And where can our lovely guests follow you as well?
You can find me at Tony Has Nine Fingers on YouTube, where I do movie reviews, unboxings, anything movie related. You'll find me on there. Tony Has Nine Fingers on X. I don't use. I just say it in my spiel. Tony Has Nine Fingers on TikTok, which is my go-to, where you'll find me the most, talking about movies, reviews, showing some movies off that you might have forgotten about. So follow me there. Almost to 30,000 followers, trying to get to that mark. So that's where I'm at most. Tony's Movies on Instagram, where I show off the movies behind me. And of course, here on the Wicked Horror Show, most Tuesdays, whether we have awesome guests or it's just horror movie talk, find us here. And Kevin.
Just stay a knuckle on Instagram. And besides doing the show, I'm also part of That Strange Show. And the very rare occasion of Re-Education of Nancy Ann Ritter, and which are all those shows are part of the Dorkening Podcast Network and also part of Dead of Winter. So don't hesitate to go check out both of those platforms and all the other shows that are on them. And thanks everyone for watching / listening. Thank you to our guests. Thank you for the awesome movie. And have a great night, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Give us 1 second.